Hey there and welcome to Artificial Fluency. I'm John.
And I'm Emma. Great to have you with us today.
Today's episode is all about something that might seem simple, but is actually super important for English learners talking about daily life. You know those everyday conversations about routines, work, home life, errands, all that stuff that makes up most of our interactions.
Exactly. These daily life conversations are the foundation of real fluency. You might be able to discuss complex topics like climate change or economics in English, but if you struggle to talk about what you had for breakfast or your weekend plans, conversations with native speakers can feel awkward.
I've noticed this with a lot of my students over the years. They study academic English or business English, but then feel lost in casual settings.
And it makes sense, right? Textbooks often focus on formal language or specific professional context, but they don't always prepare you for those everyday interactions that make up most of our communication.
So today, we're going to cover the language, expressions, and even cultural aspects of talking about daily life in English. We'll look at morning routines, work life, household tasks, shopping, leisure activities, and more.
And we'll highlight those subtle differences between formal and informal language that can really make you sound more natural when chatting with native speakers.
Plus, we'll share some cultural insights along the way, because how people talk about their daily lives reflects cultural values and norms.
So whether you're preparing for a trip to an English-speaking country, want to connect better with English-speaking colleagues, or just want to sound more natural in your everyday conversations, this episode is for you.
Let's get started.
So John, let's start at the beginning of the day, morning routines. This is something people chat about all the time, right?
Absolutely. How's your morning been? Or did you have a good morning? Are such common conversation starters, and talking about morning routines is a great way to connect with people.
What are some natural ways that native speakers might describe their morning routine?
Well, instead of saying I wake up at 6 a.m., which sounds a bit formal or textbook-like, you might hear something like, I'm usually up around 6, or I get up at 6.
I like that example. That suffix, ish, is so useful in everyday speech. It means approximately, and native speakers use it all the time. I'll be there at 7-ish, or it's blue-ish in color.
Exactly. And when talking about the first thing they do, instead of I brush my teeth and take a shower, people might say something like I hop in the shower first thing, or I can't function without my morning coffee.
Those expressions like first thing and can't function without are the kinds of natural phrases that make you sound like a native speaker.
Here's another one. Instead of I eat breakfast, you might hear I grab something quick for breakfast, or I usually just have toast and coffee.
And for people who are rushing in the morning, I'm always rushing out the door, or I'm not really a morning person, so I keep hitting snooze.
Let's role-play a quick conversation about morning routines to show how this might sound in real life. I'll start. So, Emma, are you an early bird, or do you like to sleep in when you can?
Oh, definitely an early bird. I'm usually up by 5:30 even on weekends. I can't help it. Once the sun's up, I'm up. What about you?
I wish I could say the same. I really struggle with mornings. I set like 3 alarms and still end up rushing around like a headless chicken most days.
That's quite an image. So, what does your typical morning look like when you're rushing around?
Well, I usually hit snooze a couple times, then realize I'm running late. I'll jump in the shower, throw on whatever clothes are clean, grab a granola bar or something quick, and dash out the door. Not exactly the mindful morning routine all those wellness influencers recommend.
Hey, whatever works for you. I like to take my time in the morning, get up, do a quick workout, have a proper breakfast while I read the news. It sets me up for the day, you know?
That sounds so civilized. Maybe one day I'll get there. Do you meal prep or anything the night before?
Sometimes I'll make overnight oats or set the coffee maker to auto-start. Little things that make the morning smoother.
So you can hear how that conversation flowed naturally. We used expressions like early bird, sleep in, running late, dash out the door. Sets me up for the day, all very natural ways to talk about mornings.
And notice we didn't just list activities. We added personal opinions and feelings, which is how real conversations work. People don't just exchange information. They share attitudes and experiences.
Great point. Let's move on to the next part of the day, work and professional life.
Work takes up such a big part of many people's daily lives, so it's naturally a common topic of conversation.
And this is an area where the formal language you might learn in textbooks can be quite different from how people actually talk about their workday.
Absolutely. For example, instead of saying, I arrived at my workplace at 9 a.m., you'd probably hear something like, I got to work around 9, or I made it to the office by 9.
Right? And rather than I have many responsibilities, someone might say, I've got a lot on my plate right now, or I'm juggling quite a few projects.
I hear I'm swamped a lot too. And instead of saying it was a difficult day, people often use phrases like it was one of those days or today was a complete nightmare.
Those are great examples. There are also different ways to talk about success at work rather than I completed the project successfully. You might hear we knocked it out of the park or we absolutely crushed that presentation.
And for challenges, we hit a few snags along the way. We ran into some issues with the client.
Let's do another quick role play to show how a conversation about work might sound between colleagues or friends. Emma, how about you start this one?
How's work been lately? Still crazy busy?
Ugh, you have no idea. This new product launch is taking over my life. I've been putting in some serious overtime trying to get everything sorted before the deadline.
That sounds rough. Is your boss at least appreciative of all the extra hours you're putting in?
Yeah, she's been pretty good about it. Actually gave me a shout out in the all-hands meeting last week, which was nice. The team's been pulling together well, all things considered. How about you still dealing with that difficult client?
We finally wrapped up that project, thank goodness. But now I'm playing catch up on everything else I put on the back burner. You know how it goes, solve one problem and 3 more pop up.
Tell me about it. Are you still working from home some days, or are you back in the office full time?
We're doing this hybrid thing now, Tuesdays and Thursdays in the office, the rest at home. It's actually a pretty good balance. I get the FaceTime with colleagues, but also those days when I can just put my head down and power through stuff without interruptions.
That sounds ideal. I've been pushing for something similar. The daily commute is really wearing me down.
In that conversation, we used phrases like crazy busy, putting in overtime, get everything sorted, gave me a shout out, pulling together, wrapped up that project, playing catch up, put on the back burner, and power through.
These are all such natural ways to talk about work that you might not find in a textbook, but are used every day by native speakers.
And we mentioned a couple of newer work concepts too. All hands meeting. A meeting for the entire company or department, and hybrid work, splitting time between office and home.
Workplace vocabulary evolves pretty quickly, especially after the pandemic changed so many work patterns. Terms like WFH, working from home, Zoom fatigue, and asynchronous work have all become common in the last few years.
Great point. Now let's talk about another big part of daily life, household chores and running errands.
This is such an important area for everyday conversation, talking about all those tasks we need to do to keep our lives running smoothly.
Exactly. And there's a lot of specific vocabulary and expressions related to housework and errands that might not come up in language classes.
For instance, instead of saying, I need to clean my home, people often break it down into specific tasks. I need to vacuum. I've got to do the dishes. I should really mop the kitchen floor, or the bathroom needs a good scrub.
And there are so many informal phrases for these activities. Instead of, I need to do the laundry, you might hear, I need to throw in a load of laundry, or I've got a pile of laundry to tackle.
For errands outside the home, people often group them together. I've got to run some errands today, or I'm going to try to knock out a few errands this afternoon.
Knock out meaning to complete or finish them, that's a great phrasal verb example. And specific errands might include picking up groceries, dropping off the dry cleaning, stopping by the bank, or swinging by the pharmacy.
I love how, in English, we have these directional particles like up, off, but that completely changed the meaning of verbs in different contexts.
Absolutely. And when people are talking about their to-do lists, you'll often hear expressions like, I need to get around to, or I've been putting off, or I've been meaning to.
All of which basically mean, I haven't done it yet, but I should. Let's do a quick role play about household chores and errands. I'll start. What are you up to this weekend? Anything fun planned?
I wish. My apartment is a complete disaster, so I really need to spend Saturday getting it back in shape. How about you?
Pretty much the same. Actually, I've been putting off doing laundry for so long that I'm basically out of clean clothes, and my fridge is empty, so I need to hit the grocery store at some point.
Adulting is so glamorous, isn't it? I also need to swing by the post office to mail my mom's birthday gift. Oh, and I've got this leaky faucet I've been ignoring for weeks.
Are you going to fix it yourself?
No way. I'm going to bite the bullet and call the plumber. DIY home repairs are definitely not my thing. Last time I tried to fix something, I ended up making it 10 times worse.
Smart move. I tried to assemble a bookshelf by myself last month, and let's just say it didn't go according to plan. Now I have this wonky shelf that I'm afraid is going to collapse any minute.
We should probably both stick to our day jobs. Do you at least have time to catch up on Sunday, or are you booked solid all weekend?
Sunday should be more chill. Once I get these chores out of the way, I'm planning to just relax and maybe binge that new show everyone's talking about.
There are so many natural expressions in there, a complete disaster. Getting it back in shape, putting off, hit the grocery store, swing by, bite the bullet according to plan, wonky, catch up, booked solid, get these chores out of the way, and binge that new show.
And we touched on the concept of adulting, a relatively new term that refers to doing the responsible tasks associated with being an adult, often used with a hint of irony by millennials and Gen Z.
These kinds of conversations about mundane daily tasks might seem boring, but they're actually the building blocks of social connections. Sharing the little struggles of daily life is how people bond and find common ground.
Great point. Now let's move on to another important aspect of daily life, food and eating habits.
Food is such a universal topic of conversation, isn't it? People love talking about what they eat, where they eat, cooking adventures and disasters.
Absolutely. And there's a whole vocabulary around food that goes beyond just the names of dishes or ingredients.
For instance, instead of saying, I had breakfast, people often use phrases like, I grabbed a quick bite, or I had my usual.
And rather than, I am going to eat dinner, you might hear I'm grabbing dinner with friends, or we're going out for dinner, or even just, we're going out.
For cooking at home, instead of, I will prepare dinner, native speakers might say, I'm making pasta tonight, or I'm throwing together a quick stir-fry.
I love that expression, throwing together. It really captures that casual, improvisational aspect of everyday cooking.
And there are so many ways to describe how hungry you are. I'm starving. I could eat a horse. I'm absolutely famished. Or I'm peckish, though that last one is more British English.
Or how much you enjoyed a meal that was delicious is fine. But you might also hear that really hit the spot, or I'm absolutely stuffed after eating.
Let's do a role play about food and eating. I'll start this one. I'm absolutely starving. I completely skipped lunch today because of back-to-back meetings.
Oh man, that's rough. Want to grab something on the way home? I know this great little taco place that just opened up.
That sounds perfect. I could definitely go for some tacos right now. Have you eaten there before?
Yeah, I checked it out last weekend. Their street tacos are to die for, and they have these amazing house-made tortilla chips.
You had me at house-made tortilla chips? I'm so there. I've been trying to cook more at home lately to save money, but sometimes you just need to treat yourself, you know?
Tell me about it. How's the home cooking going? Made anything good recently?
I actually tried that one-pot pasta recipe I was telling you about. It turned out pretty decent considering my cooking skills. Though I may have gone a bit overboard with the garlic.
In my book, there's no such thing as too much garlic.
My breath the next day would beg to differ. Anyway, I've been doing this meal prep thing on Sundays, trying to sort out lunches for the week. It's saving me a ton of money on takeout.
That's so organized of you. I always have these grand plans to meal prep, but then Sunday rolls around and suddenly I have a million other things to do.
In that conversation, we used expressions like absolutely starving, skipped lunch, back-to-back meetings, grab something, to die for, housemaid, treat yourself, one pot, turned out pretty decent. Gone a bit overboard in my book, meal prep, sort out, and grand plans.
And notice how even a simple conversation about food includes references to lifestyle choices, cooking at home versus eating out, practical concerns, saving money, and personal preferences. These layers are what make everyday conversations rich and engaging.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about how people discuss leisure activities and free time, another common topic in daily conversations.
How we spend our free time says a lot about us, so it's no surprise this comes up often in casual conversations.
And there are so many natural expressions for talking about leisure activities that go beyond the basic I like to, or I enjoy.
For example, instead of saying I watched television yesterday evening, you might hear I just vegged out on the couch watching Netflix, or I binged the new season of that show I was telling you about.
Or for outdoor activities rather than I went for a walk. Someone might say I got some fresh air or I needed to stretch my legs.
For hobbies, instead of I like reading, people might say I'm a bit of a bookworm, or I'm really into sci-fi novels right now.
And there are so many expressions for socializing. Hanging out with friends, catching up with an old colleague, meeting up for drinks, or having people over.
Let's do a role play about leisure time to illustrate these expressions in context. Any exciting plans for the weekend?
Nothing major. I'm meeting up with some friends for brunch on Saturday, and then I might check out that new exhibit at the art museum. How about you?
I'm actually taking a day trip to the coast. If the weather holds up, I just need to get out of the city for a bit, you know?
That sounds lovely. I could use a change of scenery myself. It's been all work and no play lately.
Tell me about it. I've basically been living at the office. Are you still doing that painting class, by the way?
I am. It's become my little weekly escape. 3 hours where I don't think about work or my endless to-do list. I'm still terrible at it, but it's so relaxing.
That's what matters, right? I've been trying to get back into running, but it's been hard to find the motivation. I keep telling myself I'll go tomorrow, and then tomorrow never comes.
Story of my life with exercise. Have you thought about finding a running buddy? That always helps me stay accountable.
That's not a bad idea, actually. My neighbor is a pretty serious runner. Maybe I'll see if she wants to take pity on me and let me join her sometime.
Worth a shot. Just don't try to keep up with her pace right away. I made that mistake once with a friend who runs marathons. Biggest regret of my life.
That conversation included natural expressions like nothing major. Check out day trip. If the weather holds up, get out of the city. Change of scenery, all work and no play. Living at the office, weekly escape. Find the motivation, story of my life, running buddy, stay accountable, take pity on me, and keep up with her pace.
And I think it's interesting how we weaved in minor complaints or self-deprecating comments. I'm still terrible at it. Hard to find the motivation, biggest regret of my life. These kinds of small admissions of imperfection are really common in casual conversation and help create rapport.
Exactly. Perfect segue into our final section, cultural insights about daily life conversations.
We've covered a lot of vocabulary and expressions, but there are also some cultural aspects of daily life conversations that are important to understand.
Definitely. One thing I've noticed is that in many English-speaking cultures, especially in the US, UK, and Australia, conversations often start with small talk about very ordinary things, the weather, traffic, what you did over the weekend, etc.
Yes, this might seem superficial, but it serves an important social function. It establishes rapport before moving to more substantial topics.
And in many English-speaking cultures, it's common to include a bit of self-deprecating humor or minor complaints in everyday conversation. Like I'm terrible at cooking, or my apartment is a complete disaster right now.
This is actually a way of being relatable and avoiding seeming boastful. If someone only talked about how great everything in their life was, it might come across as bragging in many English-speaking contexts.
Another cultural aspect is the balance between privacy and openness. Topics like general work challenges, hobbies, and food preferences are usually safe ground for casual conversation, even with people you don't know well.
While more personal topics like financial details, political opinions, or health issues might be reserved for closer relationships, depending on the specific culture and context.
And in workplace settings, the level of formality in daily conversation varies enormously depending on the company culture. Some workplaces are very casual, with colleagues chatting about their personal lives, while others maintain more professional boundaries.
It's always good to observe the norms in your specific context before sharing too much about your daily life at work.
One more cultural insight, the pace and style of conversation can vary significantly between different English-speaking regions. For instance, conversations might move faster and involve more interruptions in New York City than in some parts of the rural Midwest or South.
Great point. So, as with any aspect of language learning, observation and adaptation are key. Pay attention to how the specific people in your context talk about their daily lives, and you'll gradually pick up the patterns.
Let's summarize what we've covered today. We've looked at natural, conversational ways to talk about
morning routines with expressions like, I'm not a morning person, first thing, or rush out the door.
work life with phrases like crazy busy, juggling projects, or hit a few snags.
Household chores and errands using expressions like run some errands, tackle the laundry, or swing by the store.
Food and eating habits with phrases like grab a bite, throwing together dinner, or that really hit the spot.
And leisure activities using expressions like vagued out, binged a show, or need a change of scenery.
We've also touched on some cultural aspects of daily life conversations in English-speaking contexts, like the importance of small talk, the role of minor complaints, and self-deprecating humor, and varying norms around privacy and formality.
The key takeaway is that talking about daily life is not just about knowing the vocabulary for different activities. It's about understanding the natural phrases and cultural contexts that make these conversations flow.
And remember, these everyday conversations might seem mundane, but they're the foundation of building relationships and feeling comfortable in an English-speaking environment.
For additional practice, try to notice how people talk about their daily routines in English TV shows, podcasts, or YouTube videos. Pay attention to the casual phrases and expressions they use rather than just the topics they're discussing.
You can also practice by recording yourself talking about your own daily life in English, using some of the natural expressions we've covered today. This helps build fluency for when you're in real conversations.
That brings us to the end of today's episode. We hope these insights help you sound more natural when chatting about everyday life in English.
Thanks for listening to Artificial Fluency. If you found this helpful, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with friends who are learning English.
And let us know what topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes. Until next time.
Take care, everyone.